go to thecoltranehome.org or find Coltrane Home on Facebook. This has been your WBAI Community Bulletin Board. If you have an event you would like us to announce, send it 2 weeks in advance to cbb@wbai.org.
All right. Thank you, Earth Mum, for those announcements from the Community Bulletin Board. Before that, we heard the best of the Jordan Journal with Howard Jordan. Unfortunately, once again, as I mentioned during the beginning of that program, he was away because he was snowbound, but he will be back next Friday starting at 3 p.m. here on WBAI New York, 99.5 FM. And WBAI.org on the web. It is almost 1 minute past 5 p.m. Stay tuned for State of the Arts NYC with Savona Bailey-McClain coming up.
Good evening. This is State of the Arts NYC, where we cover art. And tonight, our theme for the show is Let the Festivals Begin. This week on State of the Arts, we kick off the new year, and Happy New Year to everyone, with artist Saya Woolfalk. She will create a new installation project for the upcoming Outsider Art Fair. This curated space is in response to the late artist Eddie Owens Martin and his visionary environment that he created all for himself in the state of Georgia. We will also have with us tonight, and we're very excited about this, we will have Alicia Hall Moran, star of the opera performance Breaking Ice, The Battle of the Carmens. Breaking the Ice will debut in Bryant Park next week and at Riverbank State Park in West Harlem. We will also have joining us Gregory Spears, composer of the opera Fellow Travelers. And then we will have opera singer Clarence McFadden. She is the star of the musical performance Secrets. All of these performances are a part of the Prototype Festival, which begins tonight. And we have been a major supporter of all of the festivals and conferences for Jan Arts NYC. We will wrap our program up tonight with Rafael Herri-Ferri, and he is the photographer as well as architect for the exhibition All the Queen's Houses, which is now exhibiting at the Architectural League of New York. So we have a packed filled evening for you all. So let's begin with Saya. Saya, are you there?
I am. Hi.
Hi. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. I was quite excited. Our show has been very supportive of the Outsider Art Fair. And as I was talking with the team, they were sharing with me that you were going to curate a very special installation. So then I started digging a little bit and did some research on the person whose work you are referencing, and that is Saint Ohm. And Saint Ohm, and that is the late Eddie Owens Martin, created this sort of utopian village almost of various buildings in Georgia. And then I tried to look at the correlation between his style and yours, because your style is similar in some ways. You fuse a lot of elements together. You deal with fantasy as well. And I thought, wow, this is a very good, selection. So tell us, Saya, how did this all begin for you doing this particular installation?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So basically, a couple of years ago, I got a phone call from a really wonderful curator named Jonathan Frederick Waltz, who's at the Columbus Museum in Columbus, Georgia. And he and I had worked on a project together before that at the Sheldon Art Museum. And he said, Saya, I'm not sure if you would be interested in this, but you came to mind immediately when I saw this place. It's this incredible place. It's a visionary site in Buena Vista, Georgia, where this man has built a society of people who can levitate, blend ethnicities, and are these kind of ethnically mixed people of the future, and are very, very in line with nature.
Okay.
And I said, wow, that sounds very, very related to the things that I work on, because I think the last time I was on the show, I talked a little bit about the project that I've been working on for about 10 years, the Empathics. I did a site visit, and I went to the site. I looked at the architecture. I looked at Eddie Owens Martin's work, and it really resonated with me.
Okay.
And I decided that I wanted to work on this project. So now it's become a much bigger project. I'm collaborating with the Columbus Museum and also with the Kohler Art Center and the California African American Museum in Los Angeles.
Really?
To create a series of installation projects that respond to visionary art in the United States. And so the Outsider Art Fairs project is kind of the first project in that series.
Wow, that's great how this all morphed for you. For the benefit of our audience, the Outsider Art Fair is just right around the corner. I believe it begins on the 19th, correct? And
It opens to the public on the 18th, I believe, but there are events leading up to it starting on the 16th.
Right, because I know you're doing a panel discussion regarding your installation, and then there's another talk at the Ace Hotel. And I think that's also very exciting as well. So for the benefit of our audience, I would highly recommend going to the Outsider Art Fair. I know it's snowing. It's winter. It's what you need to understand. It's expected. And people don't understand. They're being constantly, told by weather people and other government people, stay inside. No, there's a purpose for why these events take place throughout the year, not just when it's hot outside, but throughout the year, so that we all can engage in art and in culture. So it's going to be at the Metropolitan Pavilion, which is on 18th Street, between 6th and 7th Avenue in Chelsea. It's a great fair. And I think this is wonderful that the Outsider Art Fair has engaged Saya to do this installation, and that it's a response to another artist. This real dialogue that's going on and what's needed right now in this country. There's so much divide going on and not enough conversation. I think this would be very, very good. What can we expect? I know you don't want to tell us all, and it should be a surprise, but what elements do you want us to look for when we see this installation?
Well, I really like how you referenced that, we really are living in a moment of kind of deep cultural divide. And I think that is the theme of the projects that I'm making in response to Eddie Owens Martin's work. The idea that someone in 1957, when interracial marriage was illegal, was able to create this kind of intercultural, blended, utopian world and have people really engage with that space, has inspired the thinking around this project. Because it's really important for us to think about ways to understand one another and develop, empathetic relationships with people whose ideas are an anathema to our own.
Yes. No, I like the way you said that.
Yeah, because, it can be an anathema. The installation will actually be a combination of objects from the collections of the Kohler Art Museum and objects from the Columbus State University's collection of objects from Pasaquan, which is the visionary site. But it will also be activated by video installation.
Yes.
And it will also be activated by an astrologer.
Yes, I thought that was a very, very interesting component. I know that at one point, Mr. Owens had dabbled in astrology. And so just to let you know, I've also have an astrologer who contributes on my show from time to time. And so what I'm hoping is maybe next week, if he's available and the weather is, more cooperative, we can bring him in to talk about 2018 a little bit, because I think that is a very important element for all of us to explore. So I thought that was very interesting. That's good.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, the working title for this project is for people who see into the future. And I think that Alice, who is the astrologer I've been working with, is really interested in thinking about how we can reimagine time and reimagine our past and reimagine our present in order for us to understand what the future can hold. And so astrology is this very, very interesting, divination technique that can be used in deeply political ways. As the kind of methods that she uses are invested in decolonizing the imagination through astrology.
Okay. I think that's becoming a common theme for 2018, because I've also been dealing with some young people where they want to retool, repurpose what we know as history, because it's not expansive enough. It's kind of limiting. It tells one side of a story, but it doesn't tell the full story.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
I think that's needed, particularly with all these controversies these days with the Confederate monuments and also with the Christopher Columbus monument. I actually testified at one of the commission's hearings in Manhattan, and I'm saying, no, don't get rid of it. I'm saying let's expand the narrative. Because if you expand, if you expand that narrative, you include more people, and you can be more forgiving when you deal with certain aspects of history that are not so pleasant. You can't change that. It happened. So we have to deal with it. So how do we deal with it? So that's the real purpose behind it. How do we really deal with both the good, the bad, and the ugly about some of our histories when it comes to humankind, because we're all a part of the human race. Well, Saya, I think this is great. Now, are you going to be present every day at the fair or only select days?
I will be present at the fair for a number of hours each day. The astrologer will be present for about 3 hours each day, which will be listed in the program schedule. But I'd love to meet anybody who comes by. I will be around, so I'd love to have a conversation with people when they come by.
Yes, I have a group of ladies, and they contacted me again today. They would love to come to the fair. They would love for me to introduce you to them. So I will follow up with you so that these ladies get to meet you, because you really are a fantastic artist. I've known your work for years before I actually got a chance to meet you. And then when I finally got to meet you, I thought it was great, because there's so much we have in common. I just want to thank Saya so much for talking with us. I mean, I asked her kind of short at the end of the week because, it's the holidays, and it was so hard to catch people. They're traveling and they're trying to deal with, with family. But thank you so very, very much for accommodating us. I also want to thank Evan Lennox, giving him a shout out, one of the publicists for Outsider Art Fair, for being very accommodating. So I just want to thank you so much, and I will be seeing you at the fair.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. with State of the Arts NYC, where we cover art. That is a selection from our guest Alicia Hall Moran, who we will have on our show later on. But right now, we have with us Gregory Spears. And Gregory Spears is the composer for the new chamber opera, Fellow Travelers. And Fellow Travelers is a part of the Prototype Festival that begins tonight. It's very exciting. This is their 6th year, and the Prototype Festival is trying to introduce chamber opera to American audiences with new themes, new ideas, new perspective. And Gregory is one of those composers that they are spotlighting. So, Gregory, are you there on the line?
I sure am.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So tell us, I know, I don't want to spoil this for our audience. Tell us a little bit about your opera, Fellow Travelers.
Great. Well, it's an opera, and I wrote the music, and the libretto, or the words and story, are by Greg Pierce, and it's his work is based on a novel from 2007 called Fellow Travelers as well, by Thomas Mallon, and the story centers on some characters who lived during the 1950s, during the McCarthy era.
Okay. And
there are 3 central characters. There's 2 men who are having a sort of illicit relationship. They both work in government. And a 3rd central character is a woman named Mary Johnson, who is friends with both of these men, and she has some secrets of her own. And they're trying to live their life in this environment of political paranoia, where the government is actually trying to hunt down political subversives and homosexuals and fire them from their jobs in D.C.
Okay. Now, that's pretty interesting, because you're dealing with 2 very charged topics. You're dealing with the McCarthy era, yes, which is filled with a lot of conflict. I would like to say conflict, because some people actually believed him until they realized that it wasn't exactly the way life was at that particular time. Then you're also dealing with a time period in which people who were gay were trying to live their lives, but it was kind of, on the down low. And so you're dealing with 2 very charged pieces. And then even the military at one point was saying that those who wanted to serve their country shouldn't, because then if their sexuality became an issue, then it could impact their safety or their performance. So you're dealing with a lot of charged issues. What made you, besides the book, there had to have been some other motivations for you to want to do this opera? Was it simply because the story was compelling, or was there any other personal aspects that you wanted to share with audiences?
Well, I think the story is certainly compelling, and I like stories that really engage history in ways that speak to people today. I think that's really central to what I like to do, and I know Greg Pierce probably feels the same way. I really, I think opera does politics and love stories well, and it actually does both of those well when it mixes them 2 together. And so I think that, Greg Pierce and I really wanted to focus the story on, you probably can hear some of the opera singers in the background, actually.
Yes. That's okay. That's okay.
And we really wanted to focus on, real people struggling against, the sort of persecution that we all know about from the McCarthy era, but maybe, I know for me personally, I didn't know, many of the personal stories. So one of the things I'm really interested in opera is how it can actually tell stories of kind of ordinary people rather than, mythological.
Yes.
And so to really try to understand this era through the really personal perspective of this couple and their confidant, Mary, I think that really drew us toward it and made us think, oh, putting this on stage with voices might be worthwhile.
Okay. I like stories that are real when it comes to opera. I happen to be an opera fan. That's why I'm a big supporter of Prototype.
Oh, wonderful.
One of the operas I like very much is Andrea Chenier.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it was a real story of a person who got caught up in the French Revolution and was one of their great poets, but yet no one realized it because of all the heated emotions that was going on at that particular time, and he lost his life. And then there's the love story that's a part of it too. But I think that's great. And I like the fact that Prototype is promoting new opera, American opera, because I think America feels that it's just a European, genre, when it's not. It's open to a variety of cultures and people and countries. And I think this is a great way of invigorating the whole discipline so that people can see themselves in some of these stories. It's not like what you just said, mystical or magical or from a long time ago. It's current and it can be real.
Yes, I totally agree. People go to the opera, they want to see, stories that come from, the world in which they live. And I think that's such a good argument for new opera. And I think the opera world is acknowledging that and changing and accommodating that. I think it's a really exciting time to be a composer, certainly, and hopefully also a listener.
Yes. So I think this is great. Now, where is your opera going to premiere at?
It's at the Jared W. Lynch Theater, which is in John Jay College, and that is just a couple of blocks down from Lincoln Center and 1 block west. So.
Okay. So it's sort of Upper Midtown and on the west side, so that way people can see it. What days will it be offered?
We have 4 shows. It's the 12th, 13th, and 14th. And so 8 o'clock on the 12th, 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. on the 13th, and then 2 p.m. on the 14th.
Okay, so I'm encouraging all of our listeners because January is a very important month because you have over 4,500 performances that are going on from APAP all the way through to New York City Winter Jazz Fest to Prototype Under the Radar Global Fest going on. It's the largest performance series in the entire country, and it's worthwhile. It's once a year, and we don't want the snow to scare anybody away. Just bundle up, add a couple of extra layers, and check out these performances. You can go directly to the Prototype Festival website, or you could go to Arts NYC. The New York City Office of Media and Entertainment have been a huge supporter of all of these festivals, so you can learn about each individual one, and then you could go to the various websites, learn about all these performances. We've had a number of folks on to the show, from the Joyce Theater with their American Dance Platform to now Prototype today, to New York City Winterfest, to APAP. We are here really working with all of these festivals so that the New York City public can actually enjoy all of these wonderful works. Well, Gregory, I just want to say congratulations, because this is quite a feat for you, wouldn't you say?
Well, it's certainly a gift to have so many talented singers, and the Prototype staff are the first-rate, world-class. So it's an honor.
Yes, and I think this might be a game changer for you a little bit too, by being in New York. I know you've presented this in other venues, correct?
Yes, and the three of us, me and the librettist Greg, and then the director Kevin, we're all from New York, so it means a lot to us to be able to have the piece here and to show it to our home.
Isn't that wonderful when you could come home and everyone's happy for you, family is here, friends, neighbors. It feels good when you could come home and share this labor of love that you guys have been working on for quite some time.
Absolutely.
Oh, I feel so happy for you. And thank you again for joining us today. It was a pleasure talking with you, learning about your opera. And I've also checked you out a little bit online, too. You have a lot of music that's already on SoundCloud and other platforms that people could check out as well. And it's interesting music. It's interesting ideas that you're trying to share. So I want to thank you so very, very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, then good luck, and I hope to catch your performance.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
I've been told over and over that mortal sin kills the life of grace in our souls. Is it true? Is it true? I confess that we, last night, his arms iron bars across my chest, so close, so happy.
Good evening. This is State of the Arts NYC, where we cover art, and you just got to hear a selection from the opera Fellow Travelers, and we just had Gregory on the show with us, Gregory Spears, who is the composer of that chamber opera. Prototype Festival, which the opera is a part of, begins tonight on January 5th. So I think that was great for us to be able to share with you some elements of these new works. And with us now, we have Rafael Herri-Ferri. Correct? Mm-hmm. And we're dovetailing a little bit towards architecture. That's what we're about. We're about all these different disciplines that are here in New York City. We are in the greatest city in the country, and we have so much to share that I think it's, fabulous that we can talk about opera, we could talk about architecture, we could talk about digital, we could talk about jazz, we could talk about all these different things. And Rafael is an architect, and he has also developed a photography exhibition that's right now at the Architectural League of New York, and that is called All the Queen's Houses. All the Queen's Houses is an exhibition showing the diversity of all of the homes that are now in the borough of Queens. And the borough of Queens is considered the most direct diverse of all of our boroughs in the city of New York. So I would like to thank Rafael for joining us. Rafael, how are you? And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Feliz Año Nuevo.
Great. And so Rafael is going to tell us what inspired him to actually, orchestrate this whole exhibition. Mm-hmm. What did you were thinking?
I've always been interested in vernacular architecture,
okay,
as well as kind of high design.
Mm-hmm.
I think the two coincide in many cases. The high and the low.
Mm-hmm.
And I started photographing in various different places, around the country, and I used to live in San Francisco. So,
okay.
Some of it started there, then in Spain and other places, Peru. And as I ran out of material, I had a little blog going before all the Cleans houses that was just about kind of modern moments in vernacular architecture.
Mm-hmm. And define that for our audience. Yeah. I don't want us to kind of go over people's heads.
Sure. Vernacular architecture?
Mm-hmm.
Vernacular architecture would be architecture made by the layman, sort of not pedigreed, academic founded architecture. Just architecture usually built by builders.
Okay.
And people, just like vernacular speaking, it's more relaxed, it's more economical. Almost always. That's what I got interested in, is because I saw that there were a lot of phenomena that emanated from vernacular architecture that were very similar to modern architecture.
Okay.
Works.
Tell us just a little bit.
So the use of color, the use of asymmetry, proportions, sort of exterior features on buildings that sort of cantilever balconies and things like that. That you can find. So as I was running out of material for this other blog, I realized that in my own backyard of Queens, so to speak, there were plenty of examples, and I just kept coming across more and more, and the focus started shifting, right to the home turf and. Like The Alchemist almost. I just started, systematically going street by street because it seemed that every block had something to offer.
Yeah.
And it was unexpected.
What I've learned about Queens over the years, because Queens has changed over the years, is that there has been this interesting mix, not just of people who now live in Queens, but how they interact with each other. Mm-hmm. So, I like Astoria because there's this huge Eastern European sort of population that's there from Bosnia to other parts of, like the Ukraine. Mm-hmm. And once I was there and walking around, and I was very fascinated when I saw, in the restaurants, the different combinations of foods. Mm-hmm. And then I would ask them, well, what does that mean? And Bosnian food, that always caught my imagination. Mm-hmm. Well, what's a Bosnian cuisine? And the woman said, we eat a lot of beef. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was interesting because it was wow, it's a whole new world. And you don't have to travel there. You just have to go to Queens, and you walk through these neighborhoods, and then you would see it. So with this architecture that you're capturing, and I did see some of the pictures, there's some interesting combinations. So tell us about some of these combinations.
Indeed. No, I mean, they can be shocking how sudden they change from one to the other. There's one housing typology that I'm most fond of in Queens. Maybe you've seen some of these kind of houses that are called semi-detached, technically.
Okay.
And it basically means it's like a twin house, kind of like a black and white cookie.
Okay.
Put together. And you see a lot of these types of houses that...
They're next door to each other, right?
They have a joining wall, and they're under one roof, but it's just two units. It's just two houses. And... they completely go their different ways.
I saw one.
Yeah.
One was brick on one side.
That's right.
One was aluminum siding on the other with a steeple
sure.
a piece to the top. And I was Okay.
Yeah. So
All right.
The notion of harmony, kind of a classical sense of harmony, is not very prevalent in Queens, and that's kind of its comical side, and I think people actually take it in stride. It's I've had the fortune of talking to some people as I take the photographs. I've been approached, and always like pretty nice terms, but they recognize that there's something strange going on a little bit, but they're very okay with it, and that's why I've described it in a couple other interviews as a landscape of tolerance, extreme tolerance, because people, even though they're butting up against each other, are completely okay with expressing different parts of their culture or identity or just personal tastes even.
Well, that's what I noticed. I noticed the fact that really what I'm seeing is a lot of individuality. Perhaps with people who are coming to this country where they didn't have a chance to express themselves. And so the one big way in which they can do it is the way they kind of decorate their home. And so that's what I saw. It wasn't so much comical for me, but it was very striking that people wanted to see themselves in their architecture, where they came from, what they believe in, and maybe this was the only way in which they could, show to a large group of people, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, because they never had that chance before. Wouldn't you say that's more likely what's going on in Queens?
Indeed. And, I think it's no accident that it's home of two World's Fairs, and that there's two airports there. It's very connected to, the rest of the world.
Yes.
More that's called the world's borough. And yeah, I mean, I talked to someone recently, like on one of my rounds, in Richmond Hill. I asked him, he was very, nice and invited me kind of into his backyard, and it was turquoise blue, It was a Queen Anne house, which, probably had some color as well back when it started, but it wasn't that color. And I asked him, what inspired the blue, and he said, well, the Caribbean, like I want to feel connected. I want this, when I'm back here, and then, on the outside as well, just to feel like, that's home. So it's
not just
and it's
about
representing, because everyone, the interesting thing about Queens, even though, people do identify, certain stops onto International Express as being strictly of one culture. It really isn't so predominant.
No,
it
it's
really
a real
is
mix.
mixed. So, everyone, has a chance to, to express themselves in their own culture.
And maybe that's really what makes Queens interesting, is the fact that it is such a mix. And then that way it opens the door for a lot of conversation. You don't take anything or anybody for granted. So then tell us, how did your photographs end up at the Architectural League of New York?
Well, they got interested in my blog a couple years ago, and we had an interview. So it's a bit of a follow-up and an update. I had enough, I had kind of a critical mass built up of photographs where I thought, I could do something that really showed the vastness of how many houses. I don't want people to think that, oh, you just found a couple dozen in quirky houses. I wanted to show that, this is kind of a phenomenon from block to block almost.
Right.
So, there was a very nice woman there, who I've been collaborating with, and we put the show together. We just dissolved, with lots of small, almost postcard size images.
So you're really giving snapshots.
It's kind of snapshots, kind of a mosaic or a quilt metaphor a little bit. When you look at it and you stand back, you can see all the different, spots of color and forms and shapes, and just see the variety from a distance. As well up close. Yeah.
So now, tell our audience, where is the Architectural League of New York?
It's on Broadway. I think it's 594. You can look it up. It's right below Houston.
Okay, great. Yeah. So it's in Lower Manhattan. And the show will last until when?
It's been extended to the 26th of December.
I knew it was extended. I just wanted you to say it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this fabulous show has been extended. So we're, again, suggesting to our listeners, you may want to just come on down to the Architectural League of New York if you've never been there before and, absorb all of these beautiful houses that Rafael has taken pictures of and talking about the people and the culture that's there in Queens. And I just want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome, and we hope to bring you back soon to talk more about vernacular architecture. All right, so we're going to take a break right now.
Jan Arts NYC is one of the largest and most influential gatherings of performing arts in the world, a partnership among 11 independent and multidisciplinary festivals. 45,000 arts leaders, entertainers, and enthusiasts converge in New York for network learning, professional development, mentorship, cultural exchange, awards, and peer acknowledgement. The Office of Media and Entertainment is proud to be a supporting partner. Participating artists: Chamber Music America, the Public Theater's Under the Radar Festival, Prototype Opera Theater Now, International Society for the Performing Arts, Joyce Theater's American Dance Platform, American Realness, PS 122's Coil Festival, NYC Winter Jazz Fest, Wavelengths, APAP Music World Pre-Conference, APAP NYC 2018, and Global Fest. The public can enjoy innovative works hosted around New York City. For more information, go to janartsnyc.org.
And we are back with State of the Arts NYC, where we cover art. We just had a lovely conversation with Gregory Spears. Not Gregory Spears, but Rafael Herri-Ferri. And he was talking with us about his photography exhibition, All the Queens Houses, that's exhibiting now at the Architectural League of New York in Lower Manhattan. And we want to thank him so much for sharing the diversity of Queens. We really strive to talk about all 5 boroughs when it comes to the arts on our show. And now we are so happy to have Miss Alicia Hall Moran, who is waiting for us. Miss Moran, are you there?
Hi, yes, how are you?
Fine. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you.
Thank you so much. Now, for our audience, Miss Moran is a mezzo-soprano singer. She's also a multidisciplinarian artist, and she loves to collaborate with various types of artists and different disciplines. And she has developed this opera performance called Breaking the Ice, the Battle of the Carmens. And I was very excited to learn about this, Miss Moran. Tell us, what made you decide to develop this work?
Well, I spent quite a bit of my childhood in Connecticut, figure skating on what they call a precision figure skating team.
Okay.
And that's kind of like synchronized swimming or cheerleading or drill team, but on the ice. Okay. And so you do these formations in groups of young athletes on the ice. It's extremely fun. And, but it's something I did when I was a kid, a teenager. Okay. And I left it. And I left it for 20 years. Wow. But when I'm really trying to deal with current politics and, who am I as a woman, as a mom? I have my own kids now. They're 10. They're getting into activities. I really wanted to not exclude those things about my childhood or my teen years in Connecticut that were complicating to my contemporary music life as a woman in Harlem.
Okay.
And that figure skating thing kept sticking with me, and I really thought I owed it to my past.
All right.
And people living unusual, and they're really not so unusual once you get there and realize unusual kind of circumstances, and just make a statement. Like, I lived in Harlem, and I know how to skate and enjoy that.
Okay. Well, what caught my attention was the fact that It was about figure skating. And I have been a figure skating fan most of my life. I can't figure skate very well. Me and my sisters, we basically, when we got on the skates, we would fall all the time at Woolman Rink in Harlem. And I live in Harlem now. But we just love the whole concept. I always watch the Winter Olympics. Big, huge fan. And then when I saw the Battle of the Carmens, I said, no, she's not. She's actually going to talk about Katharina Witt and Debbie Thomas. And then I'm reading and I'm like, yes, she's doing it. And I remembered them. I used to watch them skate. I used to cheer for both of them, but I was a big fan for Debbie Thomas. I really wanted this woman, the first African-American real figure skater, to just take it all. And I was so sad that she didn't win at the very end, the gold, but nonetheless, I don't even think she realized how much she inspired so many people, particularly young people when it came to figure skating. She was a real power skater. That's what I would call her. And so tell us now, how are you going to, convey this story for maybe generations that know neither one of these fabulous artists?
Well, Debbie is such an inspiration to me. She's a Stanford med school graduate, and that's a difficult school to get into, a difficult school to survive and excel inside. And she was this Olympic athlete simultaneously. So, this is a woman who lived in her 20s 2 dreams, enough dreams for 2 whole separate lives, really incredible lifetimes. And so for me, I get, that term black excellence?
Yes.
When people talk about that? Yes. I'm deeply in love with that as a concept. And I feel like black survival, it's also a time to just look at that. Because everyone needs clues to kind of a more sophisticated sense of survival now. And, the story of black people in America has been cataloged, photographed, fought inside of, and we've loved inside of it for so long and written so much and made so much culture here that I feel like the second I step on the ice, all of that can be read. Oh. It just can all be read. So I'm not really telling a soap opera about that Battle of the Carmens when they both, without knowing that the other had chosen it, decided to skate to music from the opera Carmen by Georges Bizet. I'm not really going to talk about the dynamic between the 2 women because they're both exceptional athletes.
Yes, they are.
And I'm not an exceptional athlete, but I'm interested in culture, and I'm a huge fan of the pursuit of excellence and the idea of risk and the idea of loss. And these are things that I'm going to visually portray in my way with the wonderful young saxophonist Maria Grand. She is Argentinian and Swiss. And the Japanese-American taiko drummer Kaoru Watanabe. And he is running a school for taiko also in Brooklyn. So it's kind of, I'm not a huge fan of this word, but it's a multicultural, multinational look at something that really is a multinational, multicultural activity, and that is the spirit of Olympic competition.
Yes.
And what is gained when you just step on the ice. And to that, I have to add that this prototype festival, Out of Bounds, is all about engaging audiences that would not expect to be surrounded by music at the moment to then suddenly be surrounded by music. So the idea of me singing on the ice is also part of embedding me in this public ice skate session. These will be skaters of all levels who show up to skate.
Okay.
But they will have a 20-minute experience inside of the auspices of Riverbank State Park in Harlem, the 145th Street, and Bryant Park, Midtown, a kind of uptown, downtown experiment about how different audiences relate to those themes as they're really just being enjoyed on the ice.
Wow. And I live in West Harlem. And I used to serve on the local community board. I used to chair waterfront and economic development, too, for the local community board. So I think this is phenomenal that you're doing this in this sort of uptown, downtown, because it's needed. We need the arts spread around all over the city, particularly in neighborhoods where there's not enough art in open public spaces. And then this is in an open public space and a very popular location, both in West Harlem, but also in Bryant Park. So why don't you tell our audience what days the performances will be held?
Sure. I'm sorry about this little call waiting on my phone.
Okay.
That's what happens with the landline. I can't stop it. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
But Thursday, January 11th.
Yes.
We will be at Bryant Park.
Okay.
Midtown, which, and we are going to appear on the ice at 1:40 p.m.
Okay.
And I'll be joined by some beautiful skaters from the Ice Theater of New York.
Yes. Yes.
Directed by Moira North. And we had an incredible rehearsal with the skaters today off ice. And I can tell you that really the chance to be up close to this level of athlete and this level of singer that I represent and this level of musicianship that Maria and on saxophone and Kaoru on taiko will bring to the ice, it's really a chance for people to see us exert up close. They'll hear my voice booming over the regular ice skating, sound system, boomy as it is, but they'll also be passing by me on the ice, and we kind of can experience the sound of the human voice on a curve, in centripetal motion, probably falling as I expect to, and, kind of really get into it. And then we're going to repeat the performance on Sunday at Riverbank State Park, which is on the west side of Harlem, inside of Riverbank State Park ice rink. And both of these locations rent skates. At Bryant Park, all of the skating is free, and at Riverbank, there is a very nominal
Yes,
fee.
it is a very nominal fee. Well, this is fantastic. So I am very excited that we were able to get you on to the show and share with us this wonderful moment. We have been posting, tweeting about it, and I just wanted to thank you so much as we had to wrap this up for one more guest. But Ms. Moran, thank you so very, very much, and I want to thank Prototype. I want to thank Sarah Nice for making this all work for us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. This is Savona Bailey. Builds community. And we are back with State of the Arts NYC, where we cover art. And we just had Miss Alicia Hall Moran, the mezzo-soprano artist, who was talking to us about her new opera performance that deals with Breaking Ice, the Battle of the Carmens. And so we're going to bring on Miss Clarion McFadden next week. We're running out of time for our show, but I just wanted to reiterate to all of our listeners that January is a busy month with lots of performances. Please go to Jan Arts NYC. Check out the individual sites for all of these festivals and conferences. We have a lot of people. Next week we have have some other folks from the Winter Antique Show joining us and New York Ceramics and Glass. And we'll bring Miss McFadden back on to talk about her performance of Secrets. So we're just so glad that the new year is here. There's a lot of good things for all of us to look forward to. And that's the importance of what we do here. We're trying to show you that, life can be lived very artfully. So thank you again for supporting our show. Check out our website, stateofthearts.nyc.wordpress.com. We got a lot of information there about other gallery shows, exhibitions. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. You can listen to us on TuneIn, iTunes, Radio Public. We're all over the place. So thank you so much, folks, and have a great week. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Imhotep Gary Bird inviting you to join us for Radio GBE, the Global Black Experience and the Global Beat Experience, where the message is in the music. Friday nights, 6 to 8 p.m. Join us for all the features, interviews, guest coverage, and the music mix you've come to expect. And, of course, the things that light up your Friday night here in New York City and across the country and right through the diaspora. Pass the word. Bird is flying high in the New York sky with Radio GBE, radio in the key of life. Friday nights, 6 to 8 p.m., right here on WBAI 99.5 FM and WBAI.org.
On Sunday, January 7th at 11 p.m., Sugar in My Bowl presents what the New York Times calls a complete artist. Improvising vocalist, composer, lyricist, and educator, Faye Victor. Join us as we prepare for Faye Victor's appearance as part of this year's Winter Jazz Festival. That's Sunday, January 7th at 11 p.m., right here on WBAI New York, 99.5 FM, and WBAI.org on the web.
From Chuck Berry to Tom Petty, from Fats Domino to Al Jarreau, we lost a lot of legendary performers in 2017. I'm Jesse Lent, the host of Trump Watch, Wednesday nights on WBAI. This Saturday at 3 p.m., I'll be DJing a 3-hour special celebrating the musical legacy of the artist that passed away last year. Entitled Words and Music, 2017's Greatest Losses, the show will include some of the lesser-played classics from the musicians that left us in the last 12 months, along with rare archival interviews. That's Words and Music, 2017's Greatest Losses, with me, Jesse Lent, this Saturday, January 6th, from 3 to 6 p.m., only on WBAI New York.
All right, and once again, this is WBAI New York, 99.5 FM, and WBAI.org on the web. The previous program was Steady the Arts NYC with Savona Bailey-McClain, her Fridays at 5 p.m. Stay tuned for Radio GBE with Imhotep Gary Bird. Yes, he is on his way and ready to do a program. But in the meantime, we're going to listen to a speech that Imhotep himself have requested for us to listen to. And it's from, and it's Martin Luther King Jr., of course.